Warm good evening to everyone present in today's webinar. My name is Abhinav Arvind. I'm a BMS Algorithm Development Engineer at Decibels Lab. So I work on cell testing and also battery pack testing using various different equipments, cell cyclers and battery pack testing equipment. I analyze the test data and I'm using them for developing algorithms for the battery management system and also for developing such certain other algorithms such as state of charge, state of health, state of energy, and all these things. In today's webinar, our focus will be to understand how we can derive some lithium-ion cell parameters utilizing some tested data that we can obtain. So just a brief overview of what all content we're covering today. So first, we will start with a very brief idea on how particular lithium-ion cell can behave in few different scenarios, like where we're considering different discharge current or different discharge loads and at different ambient temperatures. So how exactly they behave in all these conditions, we'll have a quick look at that. Then we'll discuss what are all the parameters of a lithium-ion cell and what do we mean by parameter and what are all the possible parameters that one can hope to estimate in while operating a lithium-ion cell. Then we will have a brief overview of what are all the different parameter estimation methods, along with an example. So I will show a live example where I have an Excel sheet with me and I have some data. So using those data, we will be solving some simple examples, some numerical. So nothing complex here, just a simple numerical estimation where we'll be like looking at the internal resistance of a cell. So that same sheet will be provided to you and you can use that for your reference, and also you can try to perform the same calculations along with me. Then what exactly are the real life usage or you can say real life applications what we can expect. So where we are going to be looking at model development and things like that, and also some further applications. So where we are going to conclude the session. Okay, so this is the overview of today's content. Now, yeah, before we proceed, I request my colleague Vinayak to please share a poll before we begin. So this is the first of the polls today.
Yeah, poll is live. I've shared the poll results, Abhinav. You can check and continue the session.
Yeah. So we'll proceed with the session now. Okay, yeah. Thank you all. Thank you for taking the poll. So now we'll proceed with understanding some basic behavior of the cell, like what all you can expect for a cell to do. So here you can see how the voltage curve of a cell changes along with the current that you apply on the cell. This is described in terms of what is called as a C rate. So C rate, in very simple terms, the C rate is defined as ratio of current to capacity of the cell. Okay, so this will be so both these values will be mentioned in the manufacturer data sheet. So if you were to discharge a particular lithium-ion cell at different C rates, then you can expect this kind of behavior to occur, right? So one of the parameters which you can almost immediately notice over here is the voltage behavior of the cell with respect to time. You can be very specific. That is nothing but your terminal voltage with respect to discharge time. Okay, so this is performed here at ambient conditions. So you can see that the faster I discharge, the as in to say, the more current I apply, the more C rate I apply, the faster and faster it discharges, right? So this will give me an idea of how the cell can behave under different loads in realistic conditions, especially in driving conditions. Yeah. So similarly, we also have the behavior of a lithium-ion cell in different temperatures. That is to be specific, that is different ambient temperature. Okay, so we have the entire range here from -25 to +45 degrees Celsius. And if you test the cell, the same exact cell with the same specifications in a closed, airtight, watertight climate chamber, and if you were to subject the cell to these temperature values, we'll be able to see that for every temperature change, you'll notice that your curve has a drastically different value, or you can say a drastically different trend, right? So all of this is once again attributed to the way in which the cell behaves in ambient conditions, in different ambient conditions. So here too, the discharge time has been affected. Here too, the voltage profile has been affected. And you can see that some direct conclusions you can make is that once again, your parameter, that is your terminal voltage, is heavily reliant upon the temperature as well, the ambient temperature. Okay, so keeping the load constant. So for each value, for each ambient temperature value, you can see how your terminal voltage graph changes, right? So now just just a quick short poll before we move on. Vinayak, can you please share it? So just want to see what all the audience thinks about some other parameters as well. So I've shown you terminal voltage, but there are so many other parameters. Yeah, Vinayak, have everyone answered? I see that still some people are there.
I've shared the results and stopped the poll.
Right. Okay. So yes. So once again, thank you everyone for participating. So if you consider this topic of cell parameters, there is actually a very vast number of parameters that any cell can have. So here are few of them. So open circuit voltage, terminal voltage, which we just now saw, the discharge capacity, and likewise even the charge capacity, internal resistance. So that is to say the internal resistance with respect to direct current, and then surface temperature, state of charge, state of energy, state of health, and so on. There are so many more. So these are some of the most important cell parameters when we go for real life applications, especially in electric vehicles or in any your hand-to-hand electronic devices, laptops, mobiles, and things like this, right? So these are the most commonly used terminologies that we use for cell parameters. So when we associate any battery or a cell, these are the parameters that one can expect to understand. Yeah. So some graphs you can see, some correlating graphs. So OCV, how we get them, the internal resistance, what the trends look like, and the surface temperature, what the trends look like, right? So some of these can be estimated using like measuring equipment, that is to say cell cyclers and cell testing devices. Some can be used, some can be estimated using some direct measuring methods like multimeters or current sensors, or maybe like thermal sensor like the LM35 temperature sensors or NTCs, thermocouples, things like this. Yeah, some have to be estimated using a certain algorithm, right? So these are the different ways. So the way in which we go for parameter estimation is purely dependent upon what kind of parameter it is, right? So when we talk about how exactly we estimate parameters, here is broad list of testing equipment, because most of your parameters, of your cell parameters that we see, they all originate from cell testing procedures and devices. So here is a complete list of all the equipment here, and we have this here at Decibels Lab, so where we can take individual cells or battery packs, load them into the given channels in the given machines that you can see, and then subject them to so many different profiles. So what I showed you was just a brief, like a few profiles like of different currents and different temperatures, but you can do it also with respect to different magnitudes of current, AC current, DC current, different voltage levels, different pulses, pulse response, and things like this. So all of that can be done. So basically, your parameter estimation starts over here with testing equipment. So you can see there are 5 volt 12 amps, 5 volt 30 amps. These are all equipment we're using here at Decibels Lab, and using different software that we can connect to this, we can load some different testing profiles and then analyze the output that from the testing, and then from there the voltage response is analyzed, and from there onwards we get the required parameters. Okay, so starting with some of the important ones that today we'll be covering, that is open circuit voltage and internal resistance. So like these are some of them which will just be like touching them to just having a quick overview of them and seeing how we can estimate them. There is a particular way in which we can estimate your open circuit voltage. Okay, and that is by performing what is called as an OCV test. OCV test. So this is a test profile that we have to load into the machine, where we are purposefully we are discharging the cell at regular intervals, and then we are checking that after the discharge what is the measured open circuit voltage. Okay, so here is the current profile shown in red. Okay, so you can see that at regular intervals there is a pulse being drawn. So this is the current pulse. So these are all current pulses of the same magnitude for the same rate for the same cell for the same time, if you observe one single current pulse, it will look like this. Okay, so if this is your 0 amps, then this will be at a particular load, say for example 1C, and then this will be for 10 seconds or for like 15 seconds or 20 seconds, depending upon what is your testing requirement. So you regularly keep on discharging these cells at regular intervals, and then you get a complete voltage response like this, what you see in green. The green is the voltage response. And from here, you can analyze what your open circuit voltage profile looks like. So this is how your OCV profile or open circuit voltage profile looks like. So for different SOC values, you'll observe that there is a different value of OCV that has been recorded. Yeah. So this is important to know, like especially in terms of future applications, in terms of BMS and things like that. So this will help you to estimate the other algorithms, like other parameters like state of charge and other things like that. Right. So this is a simple way in which open circuit voltage can be measured. So it's not that we can measure OCV only at a single point. It has to be measured over the entire voltage profile. So that is how we get this particular entire range over here, the profile over here. Okay, so now we will just run another quick poll. So Vinayak, can you please share the poll? So for whether open circuit voltage is sensitive to ambient temperature. So I see that many of them have selected that it is indeed sensitive. So the truth is, yes, it is sensitive. We have to consider the variation of the parameter, that is open circuit voltage, with respect to temperature as well. So because the reactions inside once again affect the voltage response on the outside. So it is very important. We have to consider it. And yes, open circuit voltage is very much sensitive. And I see that majority, that is 71%, have taken that. So yes, good to know that the audience is in track. That is correct. Then for the other one, that is should the internal resistance be measured in AC or DC? So the answers seem to be very interestingly distributed. So in reality, it is not a a standardized fixed way that it should be only AC or only DC. So usually it is both. So in terms of like test benches, or in terms of like extremely high-end you know, research and development demands, usually AC is done. So where we use like spectroscopes and things like that to measure the internal condition of the cell. And that condition is nothing but the internal resistance, or you can say internal impedance in case of AC. And DC is usually done to get a quick idea on how the resistance will behave over time. So in case you don't have the equipment or the cost to invest in AC machines, you can go for DC equipment, which will supply DC current. And from there, you can look at the DC voltage response. So usually, uh, it's just a preference. It's not that you should go only one above the other, or like AC over DC or DC over AC. It is usually you can categorize this as both. Yeah. So they see that majority of the answers as distributed towards DC, but it's okay. The usually like it is seen that both is used for measuring the internal resistance. So which is basically what you're seeing on the screen here, right? So the first method for measuring your internal resistance of the cell is by using what is called as ACIR or EIS. So ACIR stands for AC internal resistance, and EIS stands for electrochemical impedance spectroscopy. So both are like pretty similar, except that ACIR, that is alternating current internal resistance, this is fixed at one particular frequency. Meanwhile, electrochemical impedance spectroscopy is like ranged between 5 kilohertz to 30 kilohertz. Okay, so that is the current frequency. So you provide an input signal to an electrochemical system, which in this case is your battery pack or your cell. You can do it on either level. And then output, you will analyze your potential response, or you can say your voltage response. And based on that, you go for what is called as a Nyquist plot. Okay, so Nyquist plot is it's a separate topic by itself. It cannot be covered in the given time that we have right now. But Nyquist plot is basically system stability response, which will show you like the real response of the system versus the imaginary response of the system. So that will give you an idea of how the resistance keeps on changing with respect to frequency. Okay, so that is another way in which you can measure the internal resistance. So the second way is by using what is called as pulse power characterization. So this is a very commonly used test And here you can see the difference in terms of current that is being applied. It is DC current here. So the profile, you can see this on the bottom left side. This is the profile. So this profile is basically a symmetric profile that you can supply of consecutive current pulses. Okay, so it just, if I break down the pulse for you, so it looks like this. So consider that your x-axis is time in seconds and your y-axis is voltage. Okay, so this is the voltage response, and that to that you're providing your input, that is the current. Okay, so I will use a different color for that. So current. So how will you supply the current? The current looks like this. So if this is your zero line, so you're providing a charge pulse for 10 seconds, giving a rest, or you can say giving a idle period of say about 10 minutes, and then giving a discharge pulse again of 10 seconds, giving an idle of 10 minutes, and then again removing 10% SOC so that you can go to the next SOC level. So if you're starting at 100%, then at this point you're at 90% by removing 10% energy. So this is a cyclic method in which you can go for internal resistance. So this is what is called as pulse power characterization. So you can change the profile symmetry as well. You can make it symmetry, asymmetry. You can lengthen the pulse time. You can shorten the pulse time. It is purely dependent upon what is the desired response that you want, right? So these are the two ways in which you can go for internal resistance estimation. And if you observe the components of internal resistance, and here I'm talking about DC internal resistance, not AC internal resistance. So here, inside the cell, the resistance of the cell is purely categorized based on what is the voltage response. Okay, so we will come to the voltage response in just a bit. First, I will explain what is the categorization of the resistances, and then we'll proceed to the voltage response. So here, the first type of resistance is called as ohmic resistance, and that is because of your internal materials. So what are the internal materials? You have your electrolyte, you have the electrodes, that is anode and cathode, you have the separator material, you have the current collector, and things like this. So these all contribute to ohmic resistance. And you will see that in the voltage response, the largest contribution to the resistance is because of this, right? So this will give you the largest contribution. Then that is followed by a two-step resistance. That is, one is called as polarization and the other one is called as charge transfer. Okay, so just as a quick and simple understanding, polarization resistance is because of reactions. These chemical reactions, they occur on the electrode surface area. So we know that the electrodes are there. These are the electrodes, cathode and anode. So you can see them inside the cell. The cathode is your this is your positive side, and then anode is the negative side. And each sides, respective to their location, there will be a set of reactions. And because of these reactions, there'll be once again some losses. And this will account for what is called as polarization resistance. And the third type is charge transfer. And this is because of ionic exchange. So you can see lithium ions being exchanged here, right? So these yellow dots, the small yellow dots that you see here, these are all the lithium ions. So they travel from anode to cathode and then back from cathode to anode. And because of this interaction between the ions, you have a resistance. Some loss occurs here as well, and that is called as charge transfer resistance. Okay, so these are the three types of internal resistance that you can classify. In AC current, this becomes much more elaborate, but in DC current, you are able to observe this very easily. Okay, so here is a quick overview of how the voltage response will look like if you subject this cell to DC current pulses. That is the hybrid pulse power characterization. Okay, so this is the DC voltage response. And here you can see starting at 100%. So this is at 100%. You can say 100% charge. And then at every increment of 10%, you can see this is 90%, 80%, so on, till it reaches 0%. Okay, so this is how your voltage response will look like, and your internal resistance at each pulse will be measured, right? So if you break down this entire voltage response into a single pulse like this, you'll be able to observe the complete dynamics of how the voltage looks like when you supply a single pulse. Okay, so this is one way in which you can estimate this parameter, that is internal resistance, with respect to DC current. So here you can see the equations corresponding to each internal resistance. So to ohmic resistance, polarization resistance, and charge transfer resistance. So you have to divide the voltage response into three parts. So the first part is this part, which is called as instantaneous voltage drop. Okay, this is called as instantaneous voltage drop. Then we have the second region, which is between these 2 points, and this is called as exponential voltage drop. This is the second categorization. And then the third one is between this region and this region. And this portion is called as steady state region. Okay, so this entire three sections contribute to the voltage response to a pulse of 10 seconds. So you can see that in the x-axis, you can see that the entire range of the pulse is for 10 seconds, right? So between, if you apply a pulse of 10 seconds, you're able to observe that your voltage response looks like this. Okay, so this is again because of the complex dynamics, the chemical dynamics that happens inside. They are the ones that influence this kind of behavior. So once you observe this, you're able to estimate the resistance at each instant. Okay, so now I will just solve a simple example and we will be able to understand how exactly the internal resistance can be estimated in real time as well. So here is my Excel sheet. Vinayak, I suppose you can forward this to the group. You can just please upload this so that they also can have access to this.
Okay.
So everyone, request you to please give a thumbs up once you have received the files. So I'm able to confirm that everyone has this.
Yes, I've shared in the chat box.
Right. So I hope that everyone has downloaded the file. So please do keep a notebook with you. So just a simple like a calculation will perform. So here you're able to see that at different energy levels, that at 80% energy and also at 20%, I have two different voltage profiles. So all of the numerical values corresponding to the voltage profiles are given here. So all we have to do is just calculate the internal resistance given these values, right? So from this, I have marked each point OCV, V1, V2, and V3. So each one corresponding to each region. Okay, so here the first portion, that is the ohmic resistance, which has been termed as R naught, will be given as the difference between the first value, which here you can see is called as OCV, and the second value, which has been highlighted here in red, right? So just take the difference between them. So 3.9287 minus 3.7897 divided by the current. Okay, so here the current is 3.1 amps. So according to the test data, the value of current that has been supplied here is 3.1 amperes. So if you take the difference between the two voltage values over here, the 3.9287 and 3.7897, and divide that by the load current, that is 3.1 amperes, you should get your resistance. That is called as ohmic resistance. And if you perform the simple calculation, this will give you a value of 0.045 ohms. Okay, so I hope everyone has followed. I hope that this portion is simple to everyone. So please do give a thumbs up in everyone in case you have followed till here. Okay, yeah, I have received some positive response. Okay, so this is the first way in which we're going to estimate your resistance, that is your ohmic resistance. Then we'll calculate what is called as polarization resistance. That is to say, the resistance influencing this portion of the voltage response, the exponential region, right? So here I will write this as R1. So that is equal to, again, this voltage value minus this voltage value divided by 3.1. So 3.7897 minus 3.7526 divided by 3.1, right? So, and again, if you do a simple, if you use a calculator, you will get an answer of 0.0119 ohms. Okay, so again, this is the resistance corresponding to the exponential region. And this is what is called as polarization resistance. Okay, so this is the second type of resistance, and then the third type of resistance will be 3.7526 minus 3.7376. Okay, the one highlighted in brown. So here R2 3.7526 minus 3.7376 divided by 3.1. So again, here your answer will be 0.0048 ohms. Okay, so this is your the third type of resistance, which is called as charge transfer resistance. Okay, so here you can observe in the graph as well. This is your steady state response. Okay, so this is how you calculate your resistance parameters in three different regions. Okay, so by observing the voltage response to the current profile. So this is how we are able to analyze the three different resistances. Now I have shown this for one type of energy level. You can try to practice the same thing here for the second type. So that is at a slightly lower energy level. Whether the resistance value will be the same or not. So you can try this, and by the end of the session, you can probably just let me know what is the results that you have obtained. We can have a discussion. Okay, so this is how we are able to estimate the resistance. So once again, I ask all the participants if you have been able to follow so far. Please do give me a thumbs up. Okay, so now pushing forward to the next set of topics. So if you observe the variation and the behavior of resistance with respect to the state of charge, and if you plot the entire resistance, that is to say the ohmic resistance and polarization resistance with respect to the state of charge, this is how you will see the behavior. Okay, so this is how you will see that your resistance is much higher, closer to the lower SOC values, and at a more flatter region towards the like higher associations, that is at 50% all the way up till like 80%. Okay, so similarly you will see the same behavior here towards polarization resistance as well. Okay, so this is how we are able to imagine and plot the complete voltage response and the resistance of the cell. So similar behavior you can attribute even to different temperatures. So not just at ambient temperature, that is at room conditions, but also at different ambient conditions. So even higher and lower temperatures will affect the resistance of the cell. Yeah, so this is how even you are able to utilize this further on for your battery pack modeling, for your SOC modeling, for your SOH modeling. All this will be required, right? So we also have capacity estimation at different current levels and also at different temperature levels. So this is more of a direct estimate. So already the machine is configured in such a way that it will give you the direct voltage response like this and show you the capacity. So here you can just visualize with respect to the plot how exactly your capacity changes with respect to current, right? So here you can see as and when I'm increasing the current, even the capacity goes on decreasing, right? So this is again with respect to your chemical reactions occurring inside. So at a certain rate of current, it's not going to be able to provide you the desired capacity anymore, right? So this is how with respect to capacity, which is another parameter, which is also very specifically, you can call this the discharge capacity. So this way you can also visualize your discharge capacity. So once again, this will be used as an input into your battery pack to say that like the battery back control system to basically like to govern it in such a way that the capacity goes on getting adjusted as per the load. So same way, very similarly, you get a temperature response. So you had seen previously the voltage response with respect to time. Here you're seeing voltage response with respect to capacity. So here you can see again at lower temperatures, you're able to not even touch 50% of the capacity of the cell. Okay, so if it is rated at 2600 milliampere hour, then it's not even almost like not giving you just over 50% of it. So again, these are all the different voltage behaviors and voltage characteristics of the cell. Here also capacity is another major parameter which is going to be estimated, right? So we have one last poll, which I request my colleague Vinayak to share that. So far, what has the audience understood? So you can just have a quick poll, and from there onwards, I'll come to closer towards the conclusion. So let's address the queries here. Okay, so the first question, why is there a sharp rise in resistance at below 20% SOC? So the reason for that is because the reactions start to slow down. So because of this, the concentration of ions on either side will have a huge effect. And because of this, resistance plays a major part in the in the voltage behavior. So that is why you see that internal resistance sharply rises at lower and lower SOCs. Yeah, so that can actually end up damaging your cell. So that is why the cell should not be taken to such regions, right? So because of reduced reactions, which is the correct answer, that's the first option. That is why your resistance is very high at lower SOCs. Okay, so I see that up to 54% have answered this, which is the majority. I don't. So yeah, I see that this is the correct answer. Good to know that the crowd is following. And two, the second question, what are the possible side effects of using the cell at low temperatures? So at low temperatures, once again, your internal materials can start to degrade, internal electrolyte can start to freeze up and can cause a lot of problems to the behavior of the cell. It can cause the internal resistance to rise up very sharply. And because of that, degradation is very fast. So I see up to 66% have chosen the first option, and that is the correct answer. Yes. So far, I hope that everyone has followed to the complete behavior of the cell. What are all the parameters that can be estimated and how they can be estimated? So as said earlier, most of your parameters come from the cell testing experimental data. So you have a cell testing device, you have some measuring device, you have some devices which are capable of measuring these physical quantities. They are able to store them, and from that results, you are able to estimate all these values, right? So what can be further done with this data? So a short overview of what all can be done. So you can develop what is called as a cell model. Okay, so this is what is called as a digital twin model. A digital twin model. So what exactly is meant by digital twin model? The digital twin model is a mathematical replica of a cell, basically where we're going to use simple electrical equations to represent the cell behavior. So there are different ways of doing it. The one of the simple ways of doing that is by using some Thevenin's principle. So there is something called as first order Thevenin's principle, second order Thevenin's principle, where we can derive a very complex electrochemical circuit and simplify it into a electrical circuit as you see here. So first order, second order. Why is it called first order or second order? Basically, it's with respect to the number of RC branches that we see here. So this is an RC branch. This is the RC branch. And here you can see that there is a model that shows there are two RC branches. So this is the first one. And this is the second one. And each model has been identified based on the number of RC branches. Hence, therefore, the name first order and second order. So we won't be going into complete detail regarding the Thevenin's circuit principles. Already there are few webinars that have been covered regarding this. So a lot of it has been covered. So you can use the cell testing data and the parameters that have been estimated to go for modeling and prediction of cell behavior. Okay, so if you are able to generate this kind of a model, then also you'll be able to go for simulation. So you can compare your cell testing data that you have obtained in real life versus what your model is behaving, to see whether your model is valid. Is it going to give you the correct results? Is it going to behave exactly the way we are predicting it to behave? So some simple simulations can be carried out. So basically, this is the second order cell model that you're seeing here. And if I'm simulating this for the same conditions as that of the testing data, then I can compare the two results and see how accurate my model is. Yeah. So this way, we are able to like see whether the model is able to give the accuracy as predicted. And utilizing this, we can go for different types of simulation as well. So one of them being that is what is called as a pulse load. So this exact name of this pulse load is called as DST, dynamic stress test. So if you perform a dynamic stress test on a cell in real life and compare to that of the model, so like again, here we're able to compare the accuracy of the cell, the difference between the measured voltage versus your simulated voltage. And then again, here you can use it for complex algorithm development as well. So if you have a few set of simulations over here, you can also go for development of algorithms. So you can basically extend the same cell model to a battery pack level and go for some advanced simulations. Okay. So along with the cell model that we have here, which is like the second order cell model, we are able to also go for further applications such as developing battery management system algorithms, such as protection logics, estimation algorithms, cell balancing, impedance tracking. So these are all ways in which you can utilize the estimated cell parameters for further applications and development. So in battery management systems, we have protection logics, basically your voltage protection, temperature and current protection. So especially on high temperature and low temperature to prevent thermal runaway and to prevent the cell from degrading at lower values of temperature. Estimation algorithms where we have a set of data, set of parameters which has been estimated by the BMS. And utilizing that, you can go for state of charge and state of health. So state of health is very important, especially in deciding the cycle life and the operating life of the battery. So then we have cell balancing. So again, this is based on the present monitored parameters like voltage and SOC. Then we have impedance tracking. So impedance tracking continuously traces the internal resistance of the cell and goes on updating this to track the continuous change in behavior of the cells. So basically, this has been introduced by Texas Instruments. So apart from that, we have many offline predictive algorithms, basically where we can predict cell aging. So if you have a set of data, some parameters obtained by the cell testing equipment, such as like your voltage degradation, your capacity and energy degradation, then we can go for capacity fade prediction with the past data that we have obtained, and rise in internal resistance. We can predict all of this along with voltage response. So to dynamic loads, ambient load conditions, extreme conditions where we are subjecting the cell to like 100 degrees, 120 degrees, and then trying to like establish a model which will predict your thermal runaway propagation. Okay, so we also have temperature prediction. So where we can like develop like some complex models based on some estimated parameters like uh, the resistance between the cell surface and the cell core. So these are all purely with respect to thermodynamics, a separate set of thermal related parameters which can be obtained here. And using that, we can go for temperature distribution modeling. So we know that in a cell, temperature is never constant. So we know that it is like varying across the complete cross section. So we can model this. We can predict how the thermal runaway happens. We can predict the future case or future situation of the cell at very high temperatures. And also at the end, we can also go for state estimation algorithms. So in terms of state estimation, we have like many algorithms like state of energy, state of power, state of function, state of safety, and all of these. So that brings us to the end of this session.